Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary and I'll be doing a video of this Huggable penguins they're called today, and the piece is from Gare. Let me just see if I can adjust the screen a little bit so you can see a little better. Okay, yeah, the Huggable penguins from Gare, and they're pretty simple, but I will go over how I did the snowflakes, and I dry brushed some blue over the black, but it's basically just painting the white and the black to begin with, and then we can paint the feet and the beaks. And an easy piece, but I know a lot of you need to see something in order to be able to follow it and fully understand it. So I always start out with the lightest color. I have a palette here. So I'm going to be starting out with the white on their faces and their bellies. Now, there are other ways you can do this piece also. You don't have to do it exactly like mine. You could also paint holly leaves on his belly, or, you know, coming around, outlining him, or other kind of designs, or anything that you want to do. But when I teach these pieces, I'm teaching them in a library to people who are not true ceramists. And they come to have a nice night out and to enjoy what they're doing and to go home with a piece that looks like they put a lot of effort and work into it. So I have to make it as simple as possible, and so it can be done in 2 hours or less. Okay, so we're going to start with the white, and I have an assortment of brushes here. And these are acrylic paints, water-based acrylic paints. So you could pick them up in Michael's or Hobby Lobby, I believe also. But I use mostly Mako and or Duncan, okay, which Mako now makes Duncan also. I buy the white and the black in the big sizes. I wish they made the other colors in the large sizes too, but they don't. So anyway, okay, I'm gonna put the white, and I don't have to be very careful with the white because black will cover anything. So just gonna get that white in on the belly. Make sure you don't put a lot of paint in your brush, because if you do, and you have nowhere to spread it, you're gonna have lumps that dry and stay like that. So put it on and pull it out. And don't dip for more paint until you have all of the area nice and smooth. Okay, so you could see the difference. I don't know if you can, the difference in the white there and the white there. Some people who don't know anything about ceramic bisque ask me, why do I have to paint it white if it is already white? Well, that's because the white is definitely a different color than the bisque, especially now that there's no talc in the clay anymore, and the bisque is a lot yellower than it used to be. So we want to make sure that we get it nice and white. I mean, you could do 2 coats. I'm doing 1, but if you think you need a second coat, just go for it. So I did the bellies, and now I'm going to do the faces, and the face goes under the neck there a little bit also. I'm not going to put it over the beak. I mean, you can cover any color if you go out of the lines, but it does take a lot more coats because your first coat seeps into the bisque. So when you put the white, say, over the beak, and then you have to go and do the orange on top of it, it's going to take a lot more coats to cover, because now it's not absorbing into the bisque anymore. It's laying on top of the white paint. So nice and smooth. It takes a couple of seconds longer to go around the beak. I'm going to have a little bit on the beak, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Like I said, the orange will eventually cover it. It just takes a few more coats. And just this other face, and then I'm done. And then I'm going to do the black next. Maybe I'll do the beaks next. This way there won't be that much handling of the piece while I'm doing the black. If the black doesn't dry fast enough, and I'll have my hands in the black while I'm doing the beak, so I think I'll do the beak first. Let you work however you are comfortable. All right, so I have that black on there. Now, I don't know if any of you noticed, but this piece came in cracked. So I am using it just as my sample to use in this video, but it'll probably go in the garbage after this. Okay, so if you see any spots that really look light, you don't want to do a complete second coat, just go back and I call spot check. Make sure that you have all those white spots covered. Swish your brush in water. My campaign this week, in the last couple of weeks in teaching at the libraries, is they do this. They bang their brushes on the bottom of the bowl and it spreads all the hairs out. Always swish, roll, swish, roll. You really shouldn't even leave it laying in water because that loosens the glues. So I do that and I just lay it over the top of the bowl until I can go wash it better. So now I'm going to take a little smaller brush and I'm using orange rust on the beaks. Any orange that you have is fine. Okay, a little orange rust, and I'm using a small brush. I start at the tip of the beak when there's a lot of paint in my brush and work my way back to where it meets the white. So I don't have the big amount of paint in the brush when I first start out, and I put it right up against the white. Okay, so I did the top, turned it upside down, and I will do the bottom. Okay, almost. To be a little more careful with this. The white was okay to get on the beak, but you don't want to get the orange on the white. And go back and make sure that the edges meet up. Okay, so that's the one beak. And now I'll do the other beak. Again, start at the tip. So what I do is I put my paint in my brush, I start at the tip and I work my way back to the edge, and then I flatten the brush and make a nice edge with this. Doesn't matter the size of the brush at this point. As long as you have the proper amount of paint in the brush, it'll give you a decent edge. See if you can see it better this way. So start in the middle and then flatten the brush to get that little edge there, that nice straight edge where it meets the white. Can't believe the holiday season is already here. I think the year flew by. Okay, I have a little white spot under there, so I go back and I spot check and make sure that I have it pretty decent. I see another little spot. I might have to use a smaller brush to get in that corner. Now I see a white spot that I missed, so I'm going to take another brush, a little tiny brush, and I'm going to put some white right up against the beak here. If you've gone out of the lines, don't try to cover it up while the paint is wet. Wait until the paint dries, and then you can go around and you could edge it and touch up anywhere you've gone out of the lines. And don't, when you touch up, and a lot of people do this, and I just saw someone do it last night at a class, they went out of the lines and they're globbing the paint on the area they want to cover. You can't do that because it's just going to stay wet for a very long time. It's going to stay lumpy and it's never going to dry. You can do 10 coats, but just do it gradually. Thin, let it dry. Another thin coat, let it dry. And keep your paint smooth, all right? You don't want to glop it on. Okay, so I am eventually going to tip this in a little bit of yellow, but right now, because it's wet, I'm going to move on to the black. Okay, so again, I'm using Mako's large 8-ounce black. I love that the black and the white come in the big sizes. I've tried so many other paints, and I just love Mako and Duncan. They're the best. So now you can use a smaller brush to edge around the face. I'm going to use the brush that I was using on the beak. Swish it, dry it, and then I'll go to a bigger brush to do the main area. But you have to be neat around where it meets the white. So again, start not right up against the white. Get the feel of how much paint is in your brush. Flatten that edge of the brush and smooth it out. Might even need a smaller brush to edge, but for now I'm just using this one. Like I said, you can use whatever you have, whatever you're comfortable using. I'll do the best I can with this size brush, which is a, oh, I can't even read it anymore. Oh, this is a sable, and it is a number 2 round. It's one of Bruce Locke's brushes. And they're good brushes. It's a sin to use them for acrylics, but they work well. So this one has kind of seen its day, so I'm using it for my acrylics now. But I keep my brushes separated, what I use to do hand painting. Another thing I see, just a point, I see a lot of people work up in the air. Always have your piece braced and have your arm braced. Keeps it steady. All right, now this is going to be time consuming. I don't know if I'm going to finish the whole thing in the video, but I just want you to get the idea. So use a little brush to edge. I'll do one penguin, so at least you have the idea of how to do it. See, every time I put the paint on, I pull it forward, even though I start out with a lot of paint in the brush. I don't want it to stay lumpy or have ridges in it, so then I go in, before I dip for more paint, I pull it out and make sure it's nice and even. And I think I need to use a really small brush to get in here. I always like dry brushing because you can paint something all one color and then dry brush over it. But for this, with the black and the white, you don't want to paint it all black. So I'm going to switch to my small brush now to get into the corner here. I don't even know how far I went into the corner. Cute little bows on them too. You can put bows on them. And now I'm using a very, very small brush. This is a, doesn't even have any writing on it anymore. It's all worn away. But I think it's like a 10-aught. They call it a 10-aught, which is a 10/0 brush. And this is a really good brush. I don't know who makes it, but I really like it. I guess I've used it so much I've worn off the writing. I can't even read the writing on it. So I'm sure that you have a lot of brushes. You just get used to certain brushes that you really like. Okay, so I'm going to use this brush to trim. It might be better if I use this little brush to trim. See what I'm doing? I'm trimming under his arm now over here. And then I'll go back with a bigger brush to do the main area. One of these days I'll get an overhead camera so that you guys can see what I'm doing as I'm painting. I know it's probably a simple fix, but I'm not too tech savvy. And I have to look into everything that I do. Oh, did I not? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just thinking of something. I thought I didn't have the video on, but I did. Oh, I didn't do the feet. I just realized I have to do the feet with the orange also. Now that I got down here, I realize it. Okay, so I have trim around there. And I will trim around his feet, her feet, his feet, whoever. But if you haven't done the black yet, or you can stop and you can do the feet, because if you get the orange up on the area where the black is going to go, the black will cover it. Okay, so I have the trim done with a little brush. And I make sure I clean this brush really well. Don't bang it, swish it, roll it to a point. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to use a big square shader brush to do the main area, because this will go a lot faster. So if you trim first with the small brush, nice and smooth, put this on nice and smooth. I'm just going to work on one penguin. You can always go back later after you finish it and tweak it, which that's my word. I don't know if there is a word. You tweak it, you go around and use a small brush and trim where the white meets the black and touch up any edges. A little more black here. I'm painting over the cracked one. I really meant to do the other one that wasn't cracked, the other side, but I don't think it really matters. Okay, be careful over here where you trimmed around the white with the big brush. But it makes it so much easier to go back now and just touch up and not have to do the edging. So if you do the edging first, of course with the big brush I got it all over the foot, but like I said, do the feet first. I think you'd be better off. And always do bottoms. You can do the bottom of the feet in the orange, and you could do the bottom of the rest of it in the black, or do the whole thing in the black. It's up to you. It always looks neater. If somebody picks up my pieces and the bottom is not done, to me it just doesn't look like it's been finished properly. You should always paint bottoms. So while the black is drying, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the feet with the orange, because I want to do a little bit of dry brushing on his body. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I think there's enough black on there for me to show you what to do. Now, I still have some wet spots and I still have some ridges, which normally I would go back and smooth before I put my brush down. Go around and make sure all your spots are nice and smooth. You don't want any paint drying with those ridges in them, because you can't get them out. Once you have ridges in your brush, they stay there. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to use my small brush and do the orange, number 211 Orange Rust Mako. I'm going to be doing that on his feet. Whoop, I have black on my brush. So now the orange rust is covering the black pretty well where I went out of the lines down here. It's not doing such a bad job of covering it. Mako's paints are good. If you buy paints, I don't know too much about the paints you buy in the hobby stores. I don't know what kind of coverage you get with them. I know some of them, when you get them like really cheap, you probably need 5 coats for coverage. Mako, Duncan, I would say 1 to 2 coats, you'd get pretty good coverage. Okay, so what I was saying on the bottom is you can just do the edge here. This way you don't see the black like right on the edge of the foot if he's sitting down. So I would do the orange here up to here, and then do the black on the rest of it. Okay. I'm working out of the cap. I mean, you have the pods if you pick them up from me. If you're working from the jars of paint that you've purchased yourself, I just shake them up and use from the cap when I need just a little bit of something. Because I find you pour it into the pallets, you waste so much paint. When you go through paint like I go through paint, you want to conserve as much as possible. Like when people tell me there's no more in the bottle, I take that bottle and I bang it and bang it and bang it in the palette, and a lot of paint comes out. Okay, all right, so that's enough of the orange. I'm not going to do the other guy completely. So I will take a little bit of the yellow. And just accent the beaks and the feet. So I'm using a big brush. I don't have another one here. So I just put a drop in the brush, very little. Work it into the hairs of the brush. Make sure that you go back and forth with the color and not just tap. because then you didn't get it evenly dispersed on the hairs of the brush. So tip the edges of the beak. Just little things that you do, just give it a little character. And then you can tip his web feet. And you can put as much or as little as you want. I'm going up from the bottom and I'm going across the high spots on his foot. You see that? And I will do the same thing on this one. This one is not painted as well, so I'm not really going to do it on that one. And if you do, when you're dry brushing, if you do it once, it's a very pale color. If you do it twice, it's much better. So I always go back and do everything a second time. But I don't dip for more paint. This little bit that you need, and I'm using a big brush, is plenty, okay? You don't need to dip twice when you're doing that dry brushing. Okay, so now what I did, and it's hardly even noticeable. If you look really, really, really close, it has blue highlights. And that's just to give it some character spots again. So I'm using a navy. Now this is a discontinued color. It's Mako's Navy. But if you don't have navy, you just add a dot of black to a blue that you do have. All right, and I'm not even washing my brush. I do not wash my dry brushing brushes in between dry brushing. Okay, because you don't want a wet brush. It makes a big difference. So the navy will definitely overpower the yellow that I had in the brush. I do it twice just to get rid of some of the yellow that was in there. I'm going to put a little bit more navy in there. Okay, work it into the hairs of the brush. And just very lightly, and it doesn't have to go all over the whole thing. Could just be the high spots on his body, around his tail, around the edges of the arms. And you don't want it to be blue. You just want someone to say, oh, what is that highlight on there? Something just is subtle, very subtle. So even to show you, it's very hard to even show you. And if you get too much blue on it, just go back and pick up some black in your brush and do the black again. And again, I'm going over it twice. I think it pops even more on the second time around. Don't know if you can see it, but it's there. I see one blue spot that I have here is a little too blue, so I probably would go over that with the black. All right, but you get the idea. Okay, so now I'm putting my brush in water because I'm finished with it, but if you're going to be going back and forth using the brush again, don't wash it until you're finished with it, because you don't want to have water in your brush. I am going to do the eyes now. You can just do the eyes with the back end of a brush if you want, and let's see if I can do that. I'll try it on this one that you could really see here. But because he has a raised eye, I'm circling with the brush handle. Okay, and then what I did is, whenever I do outlines or lashes, I have a very, very, very fine brush. Here's the brush I just told you about. I put a drop of water in it, and then I put the black in my brush, and I pull the tip to a point. Not the whole brush, because you don't want to get rid of all the paint in the brush, but the tip. And if you have a good brush, it should work. The little bit of water in the brush will make the paint go on much nicer. Especially if you're going to be doing lashes. Lashes, I do as many lashes as comes off my brush when I'm doing it. Sometimes it's 2 or 3, sometimes it's 4 or 5. Okay, now I don't like that there's white above his eye, so I will probably use my brush and bring the black higher, because in our eye, the pupil is surrounded by color and it disappears into the arch of our eye. But on a ceramic piece, if you have white showing on the top, I don't think you should see white showing at the top because they look scared to death. So I'll go back and I'll put with the brush, I'll make that black a little bit higher. Because with the handle of the brush, I couldn't get up there because it's a raised eye. So I just go back and I painted the black up into the arch of the eye. All right, but the water in the brush makes a big, big, big difference. So I'll fix this one. I'll bring the black up a little bit higher now. This one here in the corner, not easy. So just take your time. If you go out of the lines, just let it dry. Don't try to fix it while it's wet. All right, so I made that eye in the corner go up to the arch already. So now I'm going to put a little water in my brush, go back into the black, and roll it to a really fine point and see if I can get in here. And sometimes I have to go back and forth and fix also. And I have one little spot that I'm probably going to have to fix on that inside eye. And again, just a dot of water makes the paint flow off the brush a lot easier, especially when you're doing lashes. And I curve my lashes. I curve it toward the beak. Yeah, there's a couple of spots I'm probably going to have to fix, but I somewhat got the eye in there. But that's what you do on the eye. And the other thing you can do with the black is I have two little lines in the beak. Can you see them? I think they're, I don't know if they're breathing points. I don't know what they are. But I've seen them on many penguins. Okay. I put one on either side. See them there? One on either side of the beak. Okay. Now, snowflakes. If you have the kit, I gave you a snowflake stencil. If you are just watching this, if you have a Cricut machine, I'm sure you can cut them out. I have, oh gee, it got wet on me. I have a punch. I have a punch that I use to cut out these little stencils. Okay, now when you do a stencil, you want a stiff brush. Oops, it's the brush I just used the handle of, so now I'm going to clean the handle. But the hairs of the brush are kind of stiff. It's a dry brushing brush because when you put a stencil on, if you have too much paint in your brush, it will definitely bleed underneath the stencil. So very, very, very little. I'll show you. Let me just clean my hands because I have black all over my hands as usual. Okay, so now, then I just put my finger in his eye. That's why when you're working, make sure everything is dry before you handle it. Ah, smeared his eye. Okay, so you want to put the stencil on the piece and you want to hold it as best you can. I'm trying to do it so that you can see it. Hold it down with your two fingers and make sure it's as flat as possible. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of the white, and I put a little white in the brush, but I'm taking it out of the brush. Don't want a lot, and I'm pouncing it. I'm not painting it. I'm tapping it up and down into each section of the snowflake. And then I go back and do it a second time. Okay, there's my snowflake. All right, I think I use the smallest snowflakes on this one, but it doesn't really matter. You can use big, you can use small. I'll do it again. I'll do one up here on his head. Hold it down with your two fingers. And if there's nothing in the brush, you won't have to worry about it bleeding. So every time, tap it out. Now this is on a curved area, so I don't know. I don't have it completely flat, and I also can't see what I'm doing. Okay, not too bad, huh? One more time. Put it down here. Hold it with your two fingers. Put a dab, I mean like nothing in your brush. Can you see that little bit I put in there? And then I tap it out. Not a lot of it out, but you tap most of it out. You don't want the wet part in your brush. You just want the pigment of color. So you try to get the moisture out. Go over it a few times. And if I do go out of the lines with it, I go back and I take my little brush and I touch it up. Okay? Less is more. You see that? All three of them I did, they came out fine. Of course, everybody says you know what you're doing, and you always say everything's easy, but once you get the hang of it, it will be easy for you. Now, the only other thing that I did do with this is I took a little glitter, and again, I used Duncan's SG880 Crystal Brush On Sparklers. I love it because I like the sprinkle on glitter where you put the glue and you sprinkle it on, but I cannot do that in library classes. The glitter would be all over the libraries, and I don't think they would be very happy. So you take a small brush. This is my good brush. And I really shouldn't use my good brush for glitter, but I am. So you do need a good pointy brush, though, because you want to paint the glitter only on the snowflakes. And you can just tap the glitter on. It doesn't have to be really painted. Tap it on so you get a little extra on it. See how I'm just tapping it on? And do each little arm of the snowflake. And you can go back and do it a second time if you want more glitter on it. Now, once it dries, you will see the glitter. Okay, I'll do one more. And like I said, let it dry, and then you can go back and do a second coat. Now, whether you can see that or not, I don't know. You could see that glitter. You could see the wetness of it right now, but once it dries, it will sparkle more. So you can see the sparkles more, I think, on this one. And I space them. I don't put 100 of them on the piece. I space it out so that it has character and it doesn't look like just a mess of snowflakes. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to stop on this right now. I think that I've kind of gone over everything, haven't I? I did make little bows, and I put one on the neck to make it the boy and one on the top, so that can be the girl or whatever. Okay, and you can use the same snowflake over and over. Just don't turn it upside down and have the wet side on the piece. Okay, now I was just going to show you a couple of other pieces that I just did, and those of you who follow me on Facebook under Rosemary Ceramics know that I put this picture up there. For those of you who don't follow me there, I'm going to show you a couple of cute pieces. This is all Gare's bisque. I buy my bisque now mostly because I need quantities of everything. And to pour for libraries, some libraries I need 45 pieces, some I need 30 pieces, some I need 15 and 20. And sometimes they add a class on at the end, and I just can't pour 15 or 20 pieces in a week or two. So I'm able to buy them. So I buy from Gare. I find their bisque the best of whatever I have used. I like their pieces. I like their little sculptures. Their prices are pretty decent. I mean, everybody's prices have gone up tremendously now. But Gare tries to work with you. They're a great company. So this is their little gingerbread. Is he adorable? Now I put snow on the bottom, and I put that same glitter on top of the snow. And on the icing, I used pearl. I don't know if you could see, it has a little shine to it. It's pearl. So I did it in white first, white acrylic, and then I put pearl around it. And now Gare supposedly is coming out with one of these in a stack, so it would be 3 of them, like a stack of what do they have? They have a stack of gnomes. They have the stack of gnomes I'm working on right now. So they have that, and I think he's adorable. And then this guy is so cute. They should come out with a big one. Look at him. Is he adorable? Now I didn't put snow on here because it's going to a children's class, and to give kids the snow to work with, messy. So I just put glitter, but it looks really cute with all the glitter that's on there. I don't know if you can see it, but I have the glitter on there. And he's simple. He's base coated. There's a little dry brushing of some brown in the crevices over medium mocha. Oh no, did I use medium mocha on this? I don't remember what I used on this. And then I have white, and then the little frou-frou. Somebody told me a long time ago, frou-frou on your pieces. It accents them and makes them more adorable. So I have a little red bow on him. And then this one is more for an adult class, I would say. This is a lantern, and you can put a battery-operated tea light in there. Never leave a candle unattended. And this is snow, gathered on really heavy. This is basically just white. I think I base coated him in blue first, and then I dry brushed the white over it. And even under the hat, I have green under the snow, and then I pounce the snow on top of it. The red that I use is Duncan's Barnyard Red. Find it the best red, the best red. It's a little darker, so even if you wanted to use a brighter red, like one of theirs or Mako's, I would use the Barnyard Red first, and then put the brighter red over it. But I love this. And then I painted little holly leaves and little dots of silver. Okay, so there's a few pieces I just wanted you to see. And I hope you all have wonderful holidays, healthy, happy holidays. And I hope to see you again soon on my next video. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, add comments, and hopefully I'll be putting more videos up soon. Thank you again and happy holidays.